In a cutthroat, multi-billion-dollar battlefield of corporate labor negotiations, there's a huge psychological gap between a normal deadline and a weaponized financial ultimatum. For months, mainstream sports media has played down the WNBA collective bargaining standoff like it's just a routine business debate.
Caitlin Clark has added pressure to the March 10th date for the WNBA CB talks and added pressure to the WNBPA to get a deal done.
They've framed it as a calm little dispute over revenue splits, percentages on paper, nothing more than boardroom math. But this situation was never just numbers on a spreadsheet. We were told the players' union was calmly standing firm, waiting for billionaire owners to fold under public pressure, sparked by the massive Caitlin Clark wave sweeping the culture. The narrative pushed the idea that ownership desperately needed that 2026 season revenue, meaning the players supposedly held all the cards. That was the storyline. That was the spin. But leverage only matters if the other side feels cornered, and that assumption is now looking shaky. Behind closed doors, far from press conferences and polished interviews,
NBA delivered a stark ultimatum to the players' union. A deal must be reached by March 10th if the season is to start on time.
Ownership groups have rolled out a cold, calculated strategy built to fracture the union from the inside. This is no friendly back and forth anymore. This is pressure applied with precision. The league isn't gently negotiating terms. It's applying stress at every weak seam it can find. What's unfolding feels less like talks and more like a psychological siege. Ownership has introduced a corporate tactic engineered to turn players against their own leadership. And here's the twist. Caitlin Clark's massive spotlight isn't being used as protection for the players.
Increases, but no revenue sharing movement. If you do not accept this deal by that day, every day following,
it's being positioned like a ticking clock, a high-profile countdown that raises the stakes by the day. The same attention that lifted visibility is now being flipped into leverage. To understand the real tension building inside the WNBA Players Association, you have to look at the raw math the owners dropped on the table. Media keeps circling May 8th, the season opener, acting like there's plenty of runway left. They assume both sides can stretch this into late April and still figure it out. But that May 8th date? It's smoke. It's surface-level comfort. The real timeline tells a very different story. Professional sports logistics aren't simple. They're layered, expensive, and locked into strict timelines. Travel bookings, arena schedules, broadcast contracts, training camp setups. None of it moves overnight.
I love that strategy. I used it with players all the time. You don't want to agree right now? Your next offer is lower.
And for players without signed contracts, that uncertainty hits hard. The league office delivered a blunt reality check to the union about what the actual point of no return looks like. And it wasn't May. March 10th is the drop-dead date. And it wasn't picked to scare anyone for drama. That date marks the final mathematical window where organizing a full professional season remains realistically possible. Past that line, the dominoes start falling. Training camps can't open. Properly, marketing pushes stall. Sponsorship timelines collapse. It's not hype. It's operations. Once those gears stop, restarting them isn't simple. Now look at the structure of the league right now. More than 80% of WNBA players are unrestricted free agents. That means the majority of the league technically has no roster. The system is wide open, unstable, unfinished. On top of that, two brand new expansion teams, Toronto and Portland, paid massive entry fees to join the league. Millions invested. Big promises made. And as of this moment, they don't have a single player signed to their rosters. That's not just awkward. It's a logistical emergency waiting to explode. This isn't just a disagreement over percentages anymore. It's a race against a ticking operational clock, with pressure mounting from every direction. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. This is strategy, not panic. Between March 10th and May 8th, less than 60 days sit on the calendar, and the league has to pull off a full-scale operation. We're talking about an expansion draft, a wild free agency window where dozens of players must pack up and relocate across the country, the collegiate draft, open training camps, and a full preseason schedule. That's not a light checklist. That's a logistical marathon.
You have to follow through. Because if your child, your partner, your parent, the people with whom you work, the people against whom you negotiate, the agents, if they all believe that you...
And none of it moves without a legally binding collective bargaining agreement in place. You can't sign free agents if you don't even know the salary cap number. You can't trade draft picks if the core designation rules aren't locked in. You can't build rosters on guesses and good vibes. Right now, the WNBA is stuck in neutral, and ownership is making the message crystal clear. If there's no deal by March 10th, there is no realistic path to building teams in time to tip off the season. And if the season stalls, the fallout hits fast. Arena dates get handed over to concerts and other events. Broadcast windows vanish. Sponsors start asking questions. Most importantly, paychecks pause. For players who depend on those checks, that's not theory. That's real-life pressure. But setting a hard deadline is only phase 1 in a hard-nosed corporate showdown. Phase 2 is where it gets cold. That's where an Aussie aggressive financial tactic called the exploding offer comes into play. Ownership knows that if they leave a standing offer on the table forever, the union can just sit back and wait. If players believe that a 15% revenue-sharing proposal will still be there in April, they might gamble that owners will blink first. No urgency, no fear, no rush. So how do you crack that confidence? You introduce escalating consequences. You apply pressure that compounds daily. Former Major League Baseball executive David Sampson, a veteran of high-stakes labor battles, laid out this strategy with blunt honesty. He explained it like this: every single day following our offer, the deal gets worse. That's not subtle. That's calculated psychological leverage. This is what an exploding offer really means. Today, ownership presents a specific salary cap number and defined housing benefits. It looks stable. It looks concrete, but attached to it is a ticking clock. If the union doesn't sign by midnight on March 10th, the terms start shifting. March 11th? Adjustments? March 12th? The salary cap drops by $100,000. March 13th? Housing concessions disappear. Minimum salary floors begin to slide. Now the pressure doesn't just sit in the boardroom, it creeps into the locker room. It spreads in group chats. It sparks side conversations between teammates. When an exploding offer enters the dispute, the whole emotional balance changes. The fight stops feeling like players versus owners. Instead, tension starts building internally. As athletes weigh whether holding the line is worth watching the numbers shrink by the day. Now the battle isn't just between players and owners. It's against the clock. The superstar names with huge endorsement deals from Nike and Gatorade can afford to wait this out. They've got outside income. They've got cushions. But the role players, the bench contributors, the athletes who depend heavily on their league salaries to cover rent and daily bills, every missed check matters. Every delayed payment stings. And that's exactly what the exploding offer is built to exploit. This tactic is mathematically structured to spark tension inside the union itself. The longer leadership holds the line, the more pressure builds from within. Bench players start calling the executive committee asking why the deal isn't signed yet. They see numbers shrinking. They see benefits fading. They feel the clock ticking. If enough players panic, unity cracks. And once solidarity splits, ownership doesn't have to overpower the union. The union weakens on its own. David Sampson didn't sugarcoat this mindset. He doubled down on the blunt strategy behind it, saying, "That is the punishment for not doing things on my time." That quote hits hard. It lays out a cold business philosophy. In high-stakes negotiations, timing becomes a weapon. Delay isn't neutral. Delay gets penalized. That's the message being sent. Publicly, many commentators try to frame the WNBA as a strong partnership between league and players, a shared vision, mutual respect, joint growth. That sounds good on television. But inside corporate strategy rooms, the league can be viewed differently. Ownership may see the WNBA as a major commercial asset, an investment with revenue targets and return expectations. From that lens, player contracts are operating costs, and any disruption to financial forecasts becomes a problem to manage. Everyone knows the sports world is waiting to see Caitlin Clark's second season. The attention is massive. The ratings buzz is real. The Players' Union believed that Spotlight gave them leverage. The assumption was simple. Ownership would never risk canceling a season featuring one of the most talked about athletes in the sport. Why would billionaires jeopardize their biggest draw? But ownership flipped that logic around. Instead of treating the spotlight like a shield protecting the players, they've positioned it like a pressure cooker aimed straight at the union. By locking in March 10th as the hard deadline, the message becomes intense. We are prepared to shut this down if a deal isn't reached. The question shifts to the union. Are you prepared to be seen as the reason the season stalls? If negotiations drag on over revenue percentages, ownership claims don't fit their financial model, public frustration could rise. Fans want games, sponsors want exposure. Media outlets want headlines about basketball, not boardroom disputes. Ownership's strategy places reputational pressure on the players while financial pressure increases behind the scenes. It's a two-sided squeeze. Public perception on one end, shrinking offers on the other. There's one iron rule in high-stakes corporate standoffs. If you draw a line in the sand, you better be ready to act on it. No fake threats. No soft walkbacks. If ownership says the deal worsens on March 11th and then quietly keeps the same terms on March 11th, their leverage evaporates instantly. Credibility is everything in negotiations like this. Once the union senses a bluff, the power dynamic flips for good. David Sampson laid it out with sharp clarity when he warned about the danger of empty ultimatums. He said, if they believe you are not sincere when you give an ultimatum, you have lost them forever. That statement isn't dramatic for effect. It's a cold business reality. An ultimatum only works if both sides believe the consequences are real. That's why March 10th stands out as a defining moment in league history. Ownership has pushed its chips to the center of the table. They've made it clear they won't agree to the higher revenue-sharing demands being discussed. They've signaled they won't absorb hundreds of millions in projected losses, and they've drawn a hard boundary around the logistical deadline needed to launch the season on time. The imagery is intense for a reason. It's like ownership parked heavy machinery on the union's front lawn and slid over a contract with a single message: sign. Or the clock keeps ticking. Veteran players pushing for 27.5% of gross revenue are about to test how much leverage truly exists when paychecks pause and arena schedules shift. Once venues lock in other events, reversing course isn't simple. The calendar doesn't wait. The Caitlin Clark surge has been one of the biggest financial boosts the league has ever seen. Ticket demand jumped. Media coverage exploded. Sponsorship conversations grew louder. But ownership appears willing to pause even that momentum, rather than lock in terms they believe could reshape long-term equity and control. From their perspective, short-term pain might be preferable to a structural shift they view as unsustainable. Now the real question becomes strategic, not emotional. Is this a disciplined power move designed to pressure a fractured union into signing? Or is it an overly aggressive gamble that could stall historic momentum and damage trust across the league? Negotiation theory says exploding offers can crack solidarity, but they also raise stakes to dangerous levels if miscalculated. And here's where it gets tense. When March 11th arrives, if financial penalties begin and terms tighten, will veteran players stay unified? Or will internal pressure build as different income levels create different risk tolerances? That's the human side of the math. Some can wait. Others feel every delay instantly. Unity sounds strong in public. It gets tested in private. Now it's your turn. Drop your unfiltered, sharp analysis in the comments below. Do you see a brilliant strategic squeeze unfolding or a risky play that could backfire in a major way? If you want straight talk about business strategy, financial leverage, and the real politics behind pro sports, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown.